Whenever I have a project that I want to use GitHub Actions and I have this workflow right here, sometimes I want some hover information about what this is about, or I want some diagnostics about what I'm coding, and I don't get that by default, or as far as I could find, there is no NVIN extension to provide such thing. While on VS Code, we have this with easy to install extensions. So, uh, and this is kind of holding me back from moving from VS Code to NeoVim. So I found a way to do that, and for that, you're gonna use Node, and here I'm using Node version 20, and we're gonna use this library right here that's kind of wrapper for the language server that VS Code uses to provide such hover information in any language server that matter information, and you can use that in NeoVim as well. So I'm installing it, and you have to install it globally, just like I did here. So next thing, I'm gonna open my NeoVim configuration. I'm gonna hit here in configurations, and I'm gonna create a GitHub action .lua. And here I'm gonna add some information. And the first thing, I'm gonna start the GitHub Actions language server. So to do that, I'm gonna call Vim API um, and Vim create auto CMD, I guess. And here I'm gonna specify a file type. So whenever I have a file type changing, I'm gonna add here a pattern, and this is the language. For instance, I could use here YAML, but that would mean that whenever I open any YAML file, then the language server is going to start, and that's not what I want. I want this to be triggered only when I have a GitHub Actions workflow file, and I'm just gonna define this in a moment. So I'll have also the callback, which is the function that's triggered once this is the server's running. So I'm gonna call actually when file type is triggered. So here I'm gonna call the LSP start, and I'm gonna specify that the name of this language server is GitHub Actions LSP. The file types that I'm interested into is the GitHub Actions workflow, and I also want to run the CMD. So here I have a list of uh, commands that's going to trigger the language server. So in this case, I'm gonna call the npx and then the GitHub Actions language server with the stdio option to uh, the output of this GitHub Actions language server is going to be stdio, and here I'm calling npx because this is installed globally. So next thing is to define the root directory. So in this case, it's just the regular root directory that NVIM is open. So get cwd, and then actually none of these. Um, and then I have also to pass. Actually, I don't know why I have to pass that, since this should be an optional argument, but you have to pass the session token as well. Here you can specify your session token, which is your GitHub API token. In case you want to have more information about the repository and everything, you also have the repos here, which receives a list. You can check that more of that in this GitHub Actions workflow. There is a dependency of this guy actually. that you can check all the init options. But anyway, moving on, I'm gonna also specify the settings which are none in this case. Uh, and I guess that's pretty much it. Next thing, this is going to trigger already triggered the GitHub Actions whenever we have this GitHub Actions workflow. In case you want to trigger this for any YAML, so I have it here. If I change it to YAML, if I go back to my project here, it's going to be working already. Actually, I have to import this file. So I have to go here in it.lua, so I will require this config, and this is GitHub Actions. Now, if I open here the file that I opened before, and now I hover over the thing, I just press Shift K, you can see that I get hover results, and that's amazing. So I even get some warnings in this case, so I can see and hear that this is a warning coming from the language server. So going back here, there is one thing, yeah, that I want to do is that I don't want to, in this case, if you just let YAML here, for every YAML you're gonna have get this GitHub Actions language server running. So we don't want that. So I'm gonna just change it back to it, and I want to specify this pattern GitHub Actions workflow because if the way it is right now, if I open it here and I echo the file type, you see that's YAML. But I want to specify that when this file opens a file inside GitHub Workflows, Workflows, whatever YAML, I want this to be called actually this another name GitHub Actions Workflow instead of YAML. So I can trigger the language server only when this file type is loaded. So in this case, I'll have to specify something like I'm gonna set here specify YAML files to be of type GitHub Actions workflow. To do that, I'm gonna call vincmd with this auto command. When we have a buff read, buff a new file inside GitHub workflows, and then whatever YAML that you can have here, you set the file type equal to GitHub Actions workflow. You can do that as well for if you have just YAML without the A. I guess there is a way for you to do that here, but anyways. And one last thing, if we just do that, then the language server will work, but you're gonna lose the highlight. So let me show what I mean. If I open here out of date, you can see that I have the diagnostics, but now nothing's colored. So I want to use tree-sitter with the YAML coloring and highlights for this file. If I echo the file type now, you're going to see that this is actually now GitHub Actions workflow. So to do that, I can just call Vin tree-sitter, and then the language register, I have YAML for the file type GitHub Actions workflow. So now if I reload everything, open out update, and now I have the hover information, the coloring, everything that I wanted before. So that's pretty much it. You can find in the description below the repository with these changes if you want to copy.